Polipede works here. So, chapter 1066, we finally see that man after 15 years. Let's get into it. So, chapter opens up with a continuation of our German 66 cover story. The German children have returned home to their kingdom, which is now fully docked, and I assume Caesar is begging for sanctuary from his former colleague, Judge. So we'll see more of that in the upcoming chapters, I'm sure. I wonder where this is going, though, because we've had a very Germa-filled month because SBS 104, check out that video, had a little bit about Reiju and just clarifies that Reiju's powers are from a raid suit and has no Dofu properties whatsoever. So that's kind of interesting. It's also interesting that this is going on during Egghead because, you know, Judge most likely was in Mads with Caesar Clown and Vegapunk. Now I think about those, seeing as how Caesar Clown seems to be younger than everyone else, I wonder, was he a junior member? Who's to say, but we'll see. So, chapter opens up proper with a return to Egghead, right? And we are talking to Vegapunk Shaka about what he said last chapter about the ancient kingdom that existed 900 years ago. Robin is clarifying this information, and Vegapunk just clarifies what we already know, that the ancient kingdom taken advantage of or united against by the 20 kingdoms make up the world government right now, or what originally made up the world government. The 20 kingdoms that made up the world government took on the ancient kingdom, beat them, and that's why they have been pretty much erased from history, and anyone who knows this information is taken care of, snuffed out. Usopp does not like this because knowing this information puts his life in jeopardy. Classic Usopp, very funny. And then Shaka goes on to ask Nico Robin, this discovery of information was discovered by Ohara, which is why they're wiped out. And Shaka goes on to say the will of Ohara lives on. He found out the news of Ohara's destruction a little while ago and actually knows who Robin is and how the scholars of Ohara were labeled as devils for actually discovering the true history of the world. But this was a big cover-up as the world government pinned them as devils who tried to overthrow their rule, justifying the reason why they were snuffed out. And then we discover that Clover was a Chad of a pirate as we see him in his younger days. The sort of backstory about Clover is that he was a big Chad, not unlike Mont Blanc Nolan back in the day, and sailed the seas finding books and compiled all those books into Ohara once he settled down to his older age. So he was a rapscallion, a hooligan that got arrested for discovering knowledge. That's pretty sick. And the depiction of Clover younger is very funny because it's like he's got these two little Mickey Mouse ear clovers on the side of his head and then like a fresh sprout growing out of the top of his head. Cool, sick old Clover design. I wonder if we get any flashbacks of like the older One Piece world. Man, I guess that would be before Oden's time. I'm not sure about the dates, but I wonder if we'll ever see a voyage with Clover meeting any other like old characters that we know. We'll have to see, because Brook isn't, well, I guess he would be at Brook's time, wouldn't he? See, that's what I was mentioning in one of my Brook videos. We never get to see that point in history. That's a very odd point, Brook's timeline, because I think they would have lined up, wouldn't they? I think Clover is like, I don't know how old Clover is. Is he like 60 at the time of his death? Anyway, moving on. When Vegapunk explains the time that he first went to see the ashes of Ohara, we see this very interesting silhouette of a very tall, oblong, furry shape. But then Vegapunk goes on to explain, we even see a silhouette from a bird's eye view. And Vegapunk, original body, was a big boy. He indeed was. But he explains that the lake at the center of the island had been filled with an unbelievable amount of books. So it's implied that the scholars dumped the books into the lake in order to save them from being burnt. I do believe there was a scene, at least in the anime, I have to check the manga, but I believe there was a scene in the anime of them rushing the books out of the library. So this could just be justifying that scene or the final destination of what that scene entailed of. And Shaka goes on to say, if any of the Marines discovered the books, they were too ignorant to actually understand their value, which makes a lot of sense because they're basically boys doing their job. They don't even know the context of the situation. They just know people on island bad, me blow them up. It's not that big of a thought process for them, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we get the scene here. Save the books, get the reference materials out of the library. Yeah. So this is just the contextualization of where all those books went. Okay, that makes sense. I'll put something on the screen because I want to look back at that scene to see if it has any further context that matches up what happens here. But yeah, they throw the books into the lake to save all the knowledge. And then we basically just get a recount of Robin's backstory, Saul running off to save her, which we know he was eventually frozen by Kuzan. And of course, recounting all these memories make Robin cry. And Frankie takes umbrage with that. So I gotta ask you, is Jinbei really the father of the group? I mean, he's not here for this recount of Robin's backstory. Just saying. Kind of interesting that Frankie is here to hear his wife's backstory once again. And may I remind you, Frankie and Robin were linked because Robin was mentioned in Frankie's backstory. Just saying. But moving forward, Shaka wanted to take all the books back to Punk Hazard. However, we flash back to 22 years ago in the West Blue, a few months after the Buster Call incident on O'Hara, and we see the first shot of a man who mentions giants, and we see a few giants pulling the books out of the water. So we see Gerd, Haruden, and I believe, I forgot his name, the guy with the shield that has the face on it, I believe it's that guy. And as you know, Gerd was Big Mom's childhood friend, and Haruden is now the captain of the giant pirates who was once under Buggy but is now under Luffy as part of the Grand Fleet. Vegapunk is pondering if the giants bringing up these books out of the lake know the value of them and wonders if he should intervene. And then Vegapunk gets a little visitor. That visitor turns out to be Monkey D. Dragon, and good heavens, we see Vegapunk in full shot for the first time. That boy be thinking. He is a thinker. He is an Albert Einstein reference, and he be thinking. Look at the size of his head. Look at him. I love it. I know there are people out there that are mad that we waited 15 years for an Albert Einstein joke. I think it's sick. He's even got the tongue sticking out thing. That's so sick. Oh, he's so good. Look at him. Look at him, though. Oh, my God. Okay, so Dragon goes on to say that he also knew Old Man Clover. The interesting thing about Dragon here is that you know that tattoo that he has on his face, right? At this point in his life, the tattoo hasn't been put on his face yet, but the same symbol is in the form of a bandana of some sort that's tied around his leg. So because of the repetition of this design, I'm wondering if it's significant, but that's very interesting because here we see Monkey D. Dragon is not the leader of the Revolutionary Army just yet. He is the leader of the Freedom Fighters at 33 years old, whereas Vegapunk, the head of Punk Hazard before it was abandoned, is 43 years old. So he's 10 years Dragon Senior. Dragon says, are you worried about the giants? They're not scavengers. I have had a word with them just now. They are from Elbath, and they're fully aware of the value of the books, which we know they're from Elbath. One guy has a Viking helmet. Of course, they're from Elbath. Their captain was a strange giant wrapped to head to toe in bandages. Very interesting. Vegapunk is so huge. Look at the size of that head. That's crazy. And then Dragon proceeds to chew Vegapunk out about not joining the Freedom Fighters and says as being a part of the world government, he would just be a lapdog. Vegapunk just says patooey with your freedom fighters. I don't get money from that. I'm after the bag. Don't you know? That's what the Avengers are for, idiot. It's so funny. Which, like, low-key, that's funny. That's actually kind of funny. But then Vegapunk goes on to say, and this is actually very true. This is sort of confirmation, but we've known this basically since Smoker. The world government is an insanely huge organization, and there are plenty of decent people on the inside that can be reasoned with, especially in the Navy. Don't lose sight of the end goal, Dragon. Which is true, because Smoker's not a bad guy, Kuzan's not a bad guy, even though he's with Blackbeard now. I think that's a operation onto itself. I don't think he's actually a villain. That's kind of preposterous. Kobe's not a bad guy, Himeppo's not a bad guy, X-Drex not a bad guy, Rosiante wasn't a bad guy. So yeah, not bad guys, but that also means the opposite is true, and there are people in the Marines that are gung-ho dedicated to the mission. Even those who haven't seen the true light of what the Navy is to the world government, like Sakazuki. Before he was a fleet admiral, he was like gung-ho, ready to do whatever, as we see in the O'Hara flashback. But now, as a fleet admiral, he kind of is like, well, this kind of sucks, but I still want to blow pirates up because that's the cool part of the job. That's what I think he's about, which is very funny. Very funny. Like, yeah, that's an interesting part about Sakazuki. because you've actually been at the top and you've seen a little more information. You actually have met with the 5 Grand Elders, and you still don't really get the sort of intricacies of your job and that you're just a attack dog, basically. But no, he loves being an attack dog. He's ready for it. He wants to get back to it. Terrible Sakazuki, terrible. But moving forward, the two go on to say that it's kind of messed up that the harmless Scarlets of Ohara were just decimated without care based on their discoveries. And Dragon goes on to say that he is going to raise an army that can fight the world government head on. And Vegapunk says something interesting. He says, "I thought you hated war," which kind of give us some introspective into Dragon's resolve at this point. Perhaps at the point of his early career, possibly as a Marine up until now, something has happened in him, even before the Ohara incident, that has sort of shifted him towards to making a revolutionary army. And he goes on to say, "Just watch Vegapunk, I'll change the world by making an army." So, and then he further goes on to say the will of Ohara won't die with Clover. And then we zoom back to Shaka in the present, and he says the founding members of the Revolutionary Army were Ivankov and Bartholomew Kuma, who within a year founded the Revolutionary Army that continues to shake the world to this day. Then we go back to Nami's group, whom are just reacting to the news. Nami is surprised about Luffy's father's intensity, which makes a lot of sense because she knew that, I believe, in Water 7, the crew found out that Dragon was Luffy's dad because Garp told everybody. And everyone knew who Dragon was except for Luffy, which is very funny. Usopp just goes like, "Did you say Elbaf?" Which that's very a character for Usopp. He only cared about the thing that was relative to him. Okay. Okay, I find that funny. And then Frankie reacts to Kuma because he continues to wonder, why did Kuma help them back at Shabandi? And why did he protect the Sunny during the 2-year time skip? And why Vegapunk actually, in turn, modified him so much to where he's like a weird robot slave for the world government. Yeah, big questions that still have to be answered. So Frankie's asking the big questions. And then, of course, Sanji has a reaction to Ivankov because he didn't know Ivankov was that deep in the organization of the Revolutionary Army, which, I mean, makes a lot of sense because during Sanji's whole training on the Kamabaka Kingdom, he was basically fighting those 99 masters, so he never really talked to Ivankov that much, I don't think. Now, here's the thing that everybody on the internet is either jazzed for or hates. Shaka goes on to say, "The books from Ohara certainly couldn't be left to be found by the government, but my curiosity compelled me to make a discreet trip to Elbaf, where the books were taken and they allowed me to read each and every one of them. In other words, I took everything Ohara uncovered about the world's secrets and memorized it. It's all in my head, and I've continued the research." Okay, we see a giant in bandages, wearing a cowboy hat with a big bushy beard. This person could be no other than Oimon and Koshi. No, it's Jaguar D Sol. It's Jaguar D Sol. Okay, now here are the problems about this that I've heard. Okay, on the one end, when Kuzan froze him, that was implied to kill him. Okay, this, however, we know is untrue because Kuzan has never in the history of this series killed somebody by freezing them. There are a long lists of people that Kuzan has frozen that are not dead. Luffy is not dead. Robin is not dead. Buggy is not dead. I believe Mr. 3 as well. And Dofi is not dead. He even broke out of the ice. Here's another thing that is a little interesting, and I think I might have to do some additional research on this. As to how Saul broke out of the ice, I've heard that it is possible that the Buster Call actually defrosted the ice, allowing him to escape. That seems like a cop-out, but then I'm reminded, when Sakazuki did that a whole big eruption fist attack in Marineford, didn't that defrost the people that were frozen by Kuzan, like Buggy and such? I have to look that up, but I believe that's what happened. And with Saul being a vice admiral, I could believe that he could take a few bits of cannon fire. I know that's a little ridiculous, but giants are notoriously kind of tough. So, you know what? I can believe it. I can believe it. Here's the interesting part, though. I remember in Chapter 0, it was exactly in Chapter 0, where Saul was still a part of the Marines. He's talking to Garp, and he mentions that the giants from Elbaf are savages. So, with him being supposedly the captain, of the giant pirates at this point. So he was the captain before Haruden was, or Harudigan. I can never pronounce his name right. The big guy who's the current captain of the giant pirates that's under Luffy and was under Bucky before. That guy. Okay. I wonder what exactly turned Saul's mind to thinking that the giants from Elbaf weren't savages, and so much so that he decided to actually rein them into a pirate crew with him leading them as the acting captain at the time. I wonder, because that's a very interesting sentiment. This, of course, also confirms that we're going to Elbaf no matter what. I mean, and then like I have kind of previously thought, based on Robin's relationship to Saul and Usopp's relationship to the giants, both in Little Garden, firmly established in Little Garden, and then that continuation in Enies Lobby with Oimon and Kashi. This is going to be a Usopp X Robin arc for sure, which is sick because it's already kind of a Robin arc with this revelation for Saul, but it's going to be another Robin arc when we get to Elbaf. I'm all for it. This is a baller, though. I like that Saul's alive. And out of all the supposed deaths in One Piece being fake outs, this one is the least silly, in my opinion. The Pound one was kind of ridiculous. I can't defend that. I don't get that at all. But this and the Pale one, if you want my opinion on it, based on how busted Zoans tend to be in terms of durability, I can kind of sort of believe that someone can survive something like that. Kind of, sort of. Is it silly? A little bit, but not wholly ridiculous. So the Pill thing I can believe. The Pound thing is silly. I don't believe that at all. And then Saul, there's reason for doubt, so I'm not really taken aback by Saul. I'll go along with it because I'm sure that when we meet Saul proper in the manga, there's going to be further context about what actually happened. And also it's sort of suggested that Saul can use hockey since he's a vice admiral. So we'll see. But case in point, sort of breaking things down, I don't think it's ridiculous. I think this is pretty cool. But moving forward, Robin tears up at the mentioning of Saul. She actually asks the giant captain. He's called Saul, isn't he? Which, show reference, but we're going to ignore that because I don't even watch that show. But yeah, there's a ... and Shaka says he's in hiding now, so I can't confirm anything. Which, fair, but we know from Oda just showing silhouette of him, Saul's alive. And we'll probably see him we'll most definitely see him in Elbaf. And Robin has a beautiful teary face, which confirms that we're going to see him in Elbaf. And she says, "Thank you, Dr. Vegapunk. Thank you for not letting Ohara's sacrifice be in vain. I try to help progress every field of thought possible. That it's in my nature as a scholar." Which that's cool for Vegapunk. It's in his nature as a scholar to protect progress. That's pretty cool. And then the Straw Hats are dragged by their magnetic shoes because Vegapunk wants to show them something. We cut back to the scrapyard, baby. Luffy is still in admiration by the big robot. He tries to wake up the big robot and Chomper assists. Bonnie teases the two for acting like children. Bonnie is looking better and better every time Oda draws her. Good lord. And Jinbei is just standing there as he has no lines. What is funny is that Luffy calls the robot Robonosuke, which is a good joke. Suddenly there is a big shockwave, a big dawn, right? And you can see a very itty bitty teeny weeny silhouette of something in the center of the robot where the origin point of the big vibration echo is happening. Luffy thinks the robot's gonna blow up. Oh no! Oh, but it's just an old guy stuck in the robot. And he says, "Save me, Quasar." No good, another debacle. Somebody please save me, Quasar. Perhaps space-time bit mid-warp, which is a very interesting way to say something. Very interesting. Luffy goes up to help the guy, and he mentions that he's stuck just like Kinemon. Bonnie shouts, "It's him." The old guy pops out and says, "Much obliged. You're Dragon's boy, right? I knew you'd come. Good job on making it." Then the old guy goes on to say, "Oh my, Bonnie, dear me, you sure have gotten big. It's splendid to see you so full of vigor." And then Bonnie shouts his name again, Vegapunk. Luffy's amazed that this old guy is floating. So we have confirmation that this old guy is indeed Vegapunk. And he goes on to say, "Oh, you can float too with these shoes. They have a hover function by pressing the button on the side and grabbing the lever." Luffy and Chomper do this to much jubilation. And then we get a full shot of the present Vegapunk. And he says, "Gadzooks, we've flown too far." Okay, the fact that he has shrunken in head size. I've heard many a theory about he actually split his brain up between the 6 other Vegapunk bodies, so that's why his head is significantly smaller. I love that he has an Isaac Newton apple hat on the top of his head. It kind of gives me Earthbound vibes too, or Mother 2 vibes, because I remember there was a very prominent scientist in that game called Apple Kid. So it kind of brings you back to that. And now we are full Albert Einstein reference mode, because now he exactly looks like Albert Einstein, and that's why he's got the tongue. This is a great gag. I love this. And we are formally introduced to Vegapunk with the classical Oda box. Dr. Vegapunk, the man with the biggest brain in the world, leader of the Navy's SSG unit, which stands for Special Science Group. Okay, so he's got this weird voice tick of saying Quasar. I don't know if he's just doing that because he's a smart guy, or because he's gone a bit loony after the multiple self-brain surgeries he's put himself under. Because in the past, he didn't have this sort of voice tick. So I find that very odd. I hope the apple goes up and down when he talks, but I guess we won't be able to see that until he arrives in the anime, because it looks like the apple can like sit neatly on his head and then push up when he has a thought, and maybe it spins around. I hope it does, because that would be a good visual gag. But yeah, I love this chapter. This is based. The whole thing is so cool. I am enjoying Egghead immensely. There has not been a bad chapter, if you ask me, as soon as we've entered this arc. It's been adventure piece, silly piece, all the way down. It's been quite good. With that, I guess I'm pretty much done for this chapter. No break next week, which is fantastic as always. But yeah, more videos coming soon on this stuff, because Vegapunk is fascinating. Catch you next time. If you like stuff like this, please feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Polipede Works. And if you like what you see, I would appreciate your subscription. Thank you so much. See you next time.